In life, we encounter people every day, all of whom have stories to share. We rarely take the time to ask people their personal stories, many of which will touch, move, and inspire us in some way. Matt has a passion for making authentic connections and learning about people from all walks of life. He has lived a life of giving back to the community and making a difference in people's lives. Are you ready to meet fascinating people and hear some inspiring stories? The Matt Hilton Show will introduce you to a world of possibilities you never knew existed. Sit back, be present, and enjoy. Here's your host, Matt Hilton.
Hey everyone, Matt Hilton here, the host of the Matt Hilton Show. Thanks for tuning in today. Today's guest is a fellow podcaster of mine here in the Dallas market. And in her younger life, she used to race motorcycles. And after 20 years as an accountant, she completely changed careers. You don't want to miss this episode. Stay tuned. And now a word from our sponsor.
Inspired, experienced, customer-focused. Find a mortgage that fits your needs with Maria Leach at First United Bank Mortgage, specializing in construction and closing all types of loans, including jumbo, portfolio, conventional, FHA, and VA. A tenured team, outstanding service, competitive programs. Finance your dreams with Maria Leach at First United Bank Mortgage. mleach.firstunitedteam.com, 214-316-7915. mleach at firstunitedbank.com. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Hey everyone, Matt Hilton here, the host of the Matt Hilton Show. Thanks for joining us today. And I am joined by a fellow podcaster here. And, I have invited Casey on the show to find out more about her life. I started this podcast to learn about people's stories. And everybody, I think, can either be a fascinating person, have an inspiring story, or both. And I'm interested to find out more about Casey Hasten, who is here with me. Casey, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's quite an honor. We share the same studio.
We do, don't we?
Yeah.
So what's the name of your podcast?
The name of my podcast is We Are VIP.
We Are VIP. Mm-hmm. So VIP stands for Very Important People?
If you want it to.
Okay.
VIP is the name of the recruiting agency that I work for. And we decided a few years ago that, we decided. So here's what happened. I'm a huge networker and I love to meet people. And I was having some of the best conversations with people. And I was like, there's this podcast thing out there. Maybe I should do this and just bring these people on. We'll have these conversations on the air. Sure. Kind of like you, right? You're inspired people. And so as a courtesy, I went to my company and I was like, hey, and I'd already launched my personal brand and all that kind of stuff. And they knew about this, full disclosure the whole way. But I was like, I'm going to start a podcast. And, don't worry, I'm not going to embarrass you. But if you say no, that's a whole nother conversation because I'm starting the podcast. Right. And they're like, no. Not only will we not say no, we think it's a great idea and we want you to do it for the company. Oh. And so I've been able to bring on all these people. So that's why it's We Are VIP. And because that's our slogan and also our website. Okay. And we truly believe we are VIP. But now I get to bring all these thought leaders and experts and best-selling authors onto the podcast to help job seekers find a better job and hopefully find their passion so they're not misaligned in their career.
Awesome. So you're in the recruiting space.
Correct.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
And you were telling me earlier, you saw me, I guess, 2 weeks ago with a little device that I had purchased called the
Remarkable.
Free advertisement here for Remarkable.
I just did it on my podcast too last week.
So it's an amazing piece of technology that I don't know why I didn't get it sooner than what I did.
I know.
Like I take copious notes on meetings that I go to.
How many notebooks do you have in your house from over the years?
Tons. And I'm like, okay, what notebook is that in? Yeah. Now I can just create a folder and it's there in one space. Yeah.
Have you found the digital notebook templates yet?
No. Oh, wow.
I'm going to have to share that with you. It's so amazing. It's so amazing.
Yeah.
Etsy.
So you enjoy yours.
Oh, my God.
And you were telling me before, like you keep resumes and things like that.
I keep my resumes and because I'm sitting there, I write on everything because I'm a firm believer in writing things down because you remember it better if you do that. Right. It's called double encoding for those of you who don't know that. But this actually feels like you're writing on paper when you're writing on the Remarkable, right? And I love it because I can download my resumes, write directly on the resumes, and it's right there. And then I can upload it back to the computer if I want to, or I can just keep it right there. Right. But this thing weighs less than a pound. Yeah. It's crazy.
And it comes with its own pen and all. Yeah. It's great.
Did you get the pen with the eraser?
I did.
I did too. I splurged.
It's awesome. All right. So, Casey, tell us a little bit about your background. Where'd you grow up? Are you an only child? Tell us a little bit about your background.
You really want me to go back that far?
I really want to go.
Okay, okay. I'm probably going to shock you a little bit. But
Well, let's go.
So I grew up in Louisiana,
Okay. What part?
West Monroe.
Really?
So not considered a true coon, you know what?
Mhm.
But I consider myself a Louisianan
Okay.
because, I'm north. But we moved here because my dad finished college when I was 13. Horrible time to move a girl at 13
Mm-hmm.
across state lines.
Mm.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty. I rebelled. But what was so interesting is that after we moved here, Dad got a job at TI. He was an electrical engineer there. He's got several patents with TI, but that's not important, even though it is important. But he took us one day out to a friend's house that had a lot of land, and they were all riding dirt bikes, and they had a dry pond. So, if you've ever been out in the country, you know what a dry pond is and how much fun it is to ride up the levees and stuff like that. And so I'm sitting there watching all these boys ride these dirt bikes. My dad zings by me, and he stops and goes, "What do you think?" And I said, "I want to ride." And he goes, "Well, get on." I said, "You get off." And he's like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah." And this was a 125. Okay. And I was a little bitty thing when I was 13. I was like, "Get off." And so he's like, "All right, but if you can't start it, you can't ride it." I said, "Fine." So of course I wasn't tall enough to start it. Right. So he's holding the tail of it, and I'm sitting there kicking that thing, and I got it started. And let me tell you, that led to a 5-year racing history.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I did cross country, so I would do the 50-mile loops, not the little zing-zings on the motocross.
Mm-hmm.
I like to keep at least one wheel on the ground, so at all times. But yeah, I did that for a long time, and I actually was second in state.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who would have known?
Nobody, if you hadn't asked the question.
Well, fantastic. So you grew up in Louisiana. You crossed state lines, I'm assuming, into Texas.
Correct.
Okay, cool. Because there are other
legally
states around.
too. That sounds horrible. It was legal. Mom came too.
Right. So were you only child? Like, what was the family dynamic like?
So there were 3 of us, 3 girls.
Okay.
So you can imagine my dad was so excited when the tomboy in me came out. I was the oldest.
You were the oldest, okay.
Would you have guessed that?
I'm the oldest of 4 too.
Yeah, oldest of 3 girls. And here's the interesting thing about us girls. I'm a redhead. Well, used to be, but naturally a redhead.
Right.
My middle sister's a brunette. My baby sister's a blonde.
Okay.
Yeah, don't you know that raised questions?
Mm-hmm.
They used to call us the ice cream parlor.
Oh, that's too funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so now it seems like we've kind of changed roles a little bit. It's like the middle sister has become the big sister, but I think it's just because she's so bossy, and I just don't care anymore to boss them around. Yeah. So, but yeah, I was the oldest of 3 girls. My dad was very gray very early.
I'm sure he was.
He was.
I had 3 girls and a boy, so I get that.
You know. How old are they?
They're 22, about to be 22, 20, 19, and 15.
You're almost free.
So, yeah, almost.
Almost.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
It's all good. All good. So when you were growing up, is there a time that was a challenging time for you? Was there an experience that happened that you overcame?
When I was growing up, I think that, there was an experience, but it was an ongoing experience.
Okay.
And it was, as you can imagine, I told you I was a redhead, freckled as the day is long. Yeah, and they were really bad. And I wasn't allowed to wear makeup when I was little to cover them up,
Right.
So I was very bullied as a child. And it went on for years and years. I'll never forget, there was this one girl in my neighborhood, and if you're listening right now, Stacy Bryant, shame on you. There was this one girl in my neighborhood and there was one other girl in the neighborhood, but she would say, "Okay, today I'm going to play with you, and then tomorrow I'm going to play with you, but you can't play." And I thought that was okay back then. But, and it even went deeper than that. Like if I ever said anything, if I tried to say, "Well, why can't we all play together?" I mean, she'd hit me, and I'd be like, and I thought that was normal. And it took me a long time to get to the point where I finally, one day, she was coming at me to hit me, and I just pushed her back just as hard as I could. And I think that's kind of where I realized, oh, I have power. But I really think growing up with a dad that supported my non-traditional activities, such as racing motorcycles and stuff like that, I think that also helped me overcome a lot of stuff. And even going further in high school, because I wasn't normal. I raced motorcycles. I didn't do what everybody else did, and so I was kind of the outcast in high school. I just got to be where I'm okay with me. And that took a lot of soul searching, but I'm glad that I came to that at pretty much a young age, that I don't have to do what everybody else does.
Yeah, yeah. So if you could send a message out to, young girls or boys who are being bullied, what would you tell them right now?
Stand up.
In what way? Like
You
physically fight back? Or, I mean, what do you...
I never want to advocate violence, but I would say that you are worthy and that you have the right to be who you are. We see so much of that today, and I don't want to get into all the politics of it, but you have the right to be who you are. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if somebody doesn't like you, number one, what they think about you is none of your business. That is the best advice anybody ever gave me. Right?
Yeah.
And if you can shut it off now, like if I think that you're a horrible person, but you're not, what I think about you doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so if you can learn to live in that, with that mindset where I am me, you've got to know who you are. You've got to do that inner work and know your worth and not let anybody else's perception of you become who you are.
So how does someone go through that inner work, Casey, when they have people in their life around them that aren't supportive of that inner work? Maybe they are hearing a message that they aren't worthy. Maybe they're hearing a message that you are a horrible person.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. And I'm thinking, are you talking about parents? Are you talking about siblings? Anybody?
And whatever direction you want to go with that. Yeah.
I think that if somebody is telling you you're not worthy, you need to consider the source and ask yourself, why do they think that? Because a lot of times when people are putting stuff on you, they're just reflecting what's within themselves, right?
Sure.
So sit there and look and say, why are they reflecting that on me? Mm-hmm. Or why are they projecting that on me? However you want to say it.
Right.
And if you really, it's almost like you take yourself out of the picture, you become the observer, and you have that, and I love that. Have you ever read Michael Singer?
No.
The Untethered Soul?
No.
Do I need to? Yes. Yes. Okay. Deep book. It's amazing. But he talks about, and I'm sure you've read this in other books, lots of people talk about this, but you become the observer, and you become the witness. You are not who you think you are. You're watching and you're observing what's going on inside your inner world. And that way, when those decisions happen and things go, different directions, you can sit back and go, wait a minute, how does that really affect me? And so I think for those that are being bullied or are currently being bullied, first, ask yourself why. I don't think anybody deserves to be bullied. I'm not talking about the people that go out and poke the bear and then say, why'd you hit me? Right. Or why'd you bite me?
Right.
Not that. I'm talking about people that truly do not deserve it. But I'm just trying to think back to what I did at a young age. I know what I would do now is completely different what I would have done then, right?
So let me ask it a different way. Knowing what you know now, what would you tell your younger self?
I, again, would tell myself, stand up and do not let anybody tell you what you're worth.
Okay.
For sure.
Simple as that.
Simple as that.
And you have to believe that, right?
You do.
Yeah.
You do have to believe that. And I think that that's a lot of the challenge that comes with children, especially with all the social media we have today. And what do they call it when they're throwing shade or whatever on them? Yeah. I just learned that the other day. I'm so proud of myself.
That's good. Fist bump.
Throwing shade. I know what it is. But I think that there is such a challenge for our kids nowadays. And I'm not even an expert on kids at all. I don't know how we got here. But I think that we need to, number one, take away their social media or seriously limit it, because what you're seeing out there is filtered and not real. And I think that that's where a lot of the bullying comes in, because people feel ashamed and they're taking that on themselves, and so they're taking it out on others. But yeah, I would just say know your self-worth,
Yeah.
And I keep saying do the inner work, but when I say do the inner work, I'm talking about having that quiet time. Some people call it prayer. Some people call it meditation. Whatever it is for you, have that quiet time and really look inside yourself and figure out what it is that makes you happy, that makes you tick. Because that's going to help you, not just in adolescence, that's going to help you when it comes to your career. I talk to people all the time about their careers, and a lot of people are completely misaligned with their careers. And they're unhappy because they're misaligned.
Yep.
And my passion and my purpose is to help people find their passion so they never work a day in their life.
Right.
I get to do that, and I think it's so unfair that everybody else doesn't get to do it too. So,
or that they're not in a job that doesn't feel like a job. Right.
Exactly. Like, I mean, this is my job right here. But then another part of my job is going, to the office and going and finding that perfect candidate for my client that says, hey, I really need this.
Mm-hmm.
And when I find that and they're like, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm like, oh, joy, happy, joy today,
Right.
I made somebody happy and that's what
Right.
I want to do.
So when you did that inner work as a child, did you have
I didn't do so much inner work as a child.
Okay.
I learned a lot as a child, but I didn't do the deep work till I got much older.
Okay.
And
so did you have a support system?
I did.
Okay.
So, one of the things about me, I had 2 support systems. I love to read.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot of my teachers is just the reading. And I love to read self-help books. I love to read pretty much anything I can get my hands on. And it might be about professional development for business, but I do a lot on inner work on, finding out who you are and how to set your day up for success. One of my favorite books is The Miracle Morning.
Oh, yeah.
Have
I've
you
read
read
that one.
Yeah?
By Hal Elrod, right?
Correct.
There we go.
Correct. Yeah, I was very fortunate. I got to have him on my podcast.
Awesome.
I know. But to me, that was a game changer. And that kind of sparked the journey to finding other books to read and other strategies to implement. In fact, my journal that I wanted to share with you is because I read that book.
Mm.
But there are so many other books, and I explore like Michael Singer's book, The Untethered Soul. But here's the thing. When you're reading these books, you need to be able to try on what works for you and discard what doesn't, because not everything's going to work for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that was where my inner work started. I started reading a lot of self-help books. I started reading stuff like Untethered Soul. I started reading The Go-Giver by Bob Berg, which is another great book.
Yep.
And then I started listening to the people around me. And when I say that, I just started listening to what my clients needed.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I kept hearing over and over again was, Casey, I need somebody to help me with this. Like it's a productivity problem, or I have somebody with a bad attitude, or I want to promote this person, but they're not right. And I kept thinking, okay, let me think about who I know, because I've got a pretty vast network. And that led me to another string of thinking. And I was just like, why am I referring all this business out? I'm the trusted resource.
Mm-hmm.
I need to be the one that can help them. And I started looking into ways that I could be the one to help them. And I settled on coaching school. And when I went to coaching school, that is what truly changed my life.
So tell us about that. What about coaching school? Is it because of the inner work that they make you do or lead you to do?
It is. Mm-hmm. So think this took me a year to complete. And it was, we would do a 3-day, the school I went to, which, and for anybody that's looking for a coach, I really encourage you to make sure that you find a coach that's been, gone to a school accredited by the International Coaching Federation. There's a lot of the weekend coaching schools and stuff like that. But I'm telling you, the ones that are certified are going to take you at least a year.
Yeah.
And those are, that's where you're going to learn. So we would go to, we had 3-day mods, 10 hours a day for 3 days. It was pretty intense. And then we'd have 12 weeks in between each mod. And then we had to do all this other work in between. But basically, I think what really helped me the most is that as you're learning how to coach, you're getting coached. Mm. And I mean, there were tears, there was laughter, but there was a lot of breaking free. One of the interesting exercises they had us do is, I mean, did you know that there is something called the imposter syndrome? Have you not ever heard of that? Mm-mm. The fear of not being good enough?
I've heard of that. I didn't know it was called the imposter syndrome.
It's called the imposter syndrome, okay. But it's also a phobia. And the phobia is called intellophobia. So I'm going to tell you this because we had to do a gremlin exercise.
Okay.
And I think this was and this one lasted we worked on this for I want to say 12 weeks before we finally had to turn it in. It was a pretty intense project. Mm-hmm. And the gremlin is somebody that sits on your shoulder and says, you can't do it. You're not good enough. Why do you even think that you can? And it's also a limiting belief. And so really as a coach, what we want to do is we want to help people break down those limiting beliefs, get to the real problem so that you can be successful and move to the next level. Right?
Right.
And so this gremlin project, we had to identify our gremlin. And we went through this whole exercise. In fact, I have my clients do this today because it's so powerful. And the interesting thing was I chose as my gremlin a little Raggedy Ann doll. Because we had to do a visual representation of the gremlin.
With the red hair.
The red hair. Yep. Interestingly enough, Raggedy Ann dolls don't have freckles. So I took a red Sharpie and put freckles all over that thing so that it would be, I think, because. So anyway, so So anyway, that was my gremlin. But then the other thing I did is every time I had a limiting belief about myself, like you're stupid, you're not, you're not good enough, you're whatever it was, I bought this little button making kit, and I would make a button with that on it, and I would put it on the Raggedy Ann doll. She was covered in buttons by the time this was done, by the way. It was ridiculous. And then at the end, we got into our groups, and we had to look at our gremlin. We had to say, thank you. I know you've been trying to protect me, but I no longer need you. I love you. And you have to hug your gremlin. When I hugged my Raggedy Ann doll, that thing talked back to me. I did not know it was going to tell me that I loved it when I squeezed it. I about fell over.
So it literally talked back.
It talked back. It told me it loved me. So.
Oh, that's a good story.
Yeah.
Good story.
Yeah.
So you mentioned your journal here. So tell us a little bit about it.
So this journal has been birthed out of all the different strategies that I have tried, all of the ones I told you got to try them on, kick off the ones that don't work earlier. These are the ones I've tried on that stuck. And I'm a journal junkie. I journal about every area of my life, which is why that remarkable is so incredible for me. It doesn't take the place of my journal, but I needed something that would combine it all. But anyway, so I was journaling about every area of my life, and I was like, this is stupid, because I'm carrying around 4 or 5 different journals. I was carrying them back and forth to work with me, because I never knew when I was going to need them, right? To write down an idea. And it was to the point where I was just like, I can't do this anymore. So I was like, I'm going to go see if I can find something that has everything that I want in one. And I went out to the market, and I couldn't find it. It didn't exist. And so I was like, I'm going to create my own. So here's me. I'm the big picture thinker. I had no idea what it was going to take. I'm not a detail person. And for me to get to this point right here is pretty freaking incredible. But I couldn't have done it by myself, because I'm not the detail person.
Right.
So, but there's 6 different sections in here. You've got mindset, affirmations, efficiency, goal setting. See how we're going up into the productivity, goal setting, productivity, and then finance, all in one.
Okay.
All in one. It's very holistic. And, I mentioned to you that I love to read. I give you a list of my resources that this was built off of, all the books I read.
Right.
And then there's many listed throughout. It's tabbed. I'm gonna just hold it up. So this is my actual working copy right now. So it's tabbed on the inside. It's got this great coil bound. It's not even available yet. Y'all are all getting a sneak peek.
I was about to ask, how can people get a copy?
You'll be able to get a copy. It's got the tabs at the top. So all the graphics were curated just for this. I mean, we've got them copyrighted and everything, and it's so amazing, the graphics. My artist, she was a color and symbol expert. And so for each section, like meditation or like for mindset, she did a very special, it's just beautiful. So very zen. Does it make you feel zen?
It is. It does.
So yeah, so we're launching in November.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah,
High five.
High five. Is that your first print production?
It is.
Okay.
It is. So it's kind of a big deal for me.
Yeah.
Kind of a big deal. I mean, lots of stuff going on right now. Lots of moving parts in addition to recruiting and, oh, there goes a little puppy. Sorry.
Yeah, that is Val. I have her up here today.
She's so cute. She's so cute.
So, well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And how can people listen to your podcast? Like,
the best place to go for our landing page, I mean, we're on all the major platforms. We are definitely, so we're also on YouTube. But if you go to wearevip.com and go to resources, it'll say We Are VIP Podcast, and you can find us there. And it'll take you to all the different platforms, depending on how you like to listen to your podcast.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so let's go back, stepping out of that business, I guess, business mindset. And go back into Casey and who Casey is.
Okay.
So how did you get into the recruiting space? Like, have you always been in recruiting, or what did you do before that?
It's a great question, because no, I have not always been in recruiting. I actually started my career in accounting.
Okay.
And I did that for about 20 years. And I grew to be a CFO for a very small company. I like to say that because I don't want anybody to be too impressed, right?
It was a very small company.
Very small company. Don't be impressed. But anyway, I worked for that company for 13 years. And after it closed, because I wasn't very good, it was the industry. That's what I'm going to go with. I was looking for another job. And the interesting thing about the job I was doing is we were a consulting firm. And we consulted with schools. And so part of my job was to sell the business, then to go do the business, right? Because we were small. And I loved selling the business. I loved going to see the clients because I'd go out to the clients once a month. And then I hated doing the work. And then I loved going to dinner that night, you know? So I was just like, okay. And I started getting headhunted by recruiters. And I was just like, I found all the bad ones in DFW. I will tell you that. Let me know if you want to know their names. I don't even think they work in recruiting anymore. But I found one that was really good. And she took more of a, hey, you're not just a number. You're not just going to be a part of my paycheck. You're a real person. Let's find you the job you want, you know, which a lot of recruiters don't do. And she got to the point where she'd presented a couple of jobs to me and she looked at me and she goes, you don't even like accounting, Casey. And I went, oh, what am I going to do? And she goes, come recruit with me. And I went, I don't work on commission. And she's like, oh, you're going to love it. And I was like, okay. So she asked me to come up there and shadow her one day. This was for one of the big ones. And I went and shadowed her and absolutely loved it. And I've been recruiting ever since.
Okay. That's
but it keeps evolving. You know, I mean, I recruit and I went in and I was, you know, building out a team, and then we started the podcast, and then I started doing all this other stuff. And I was just like, I can't not keep doing all this. And so it killed me, but I decided to give up leading a team so that I could focus more on the podcast and more on because I do all the media for the company now. So I'm the face for the company. And I do, you know, I help run a networking organization, a local one here that takes up a lot of my time. So, I mean, it's really evolved. And I mean, it's just so many great things have happened. And, you know, one thing I would tell people, and I'm really big on this, is, you know, keep throwing stuff out to the universe. When you want something or when you would like to see something happen, tell everybody, because you never know who's going to be able to help you.
Right. And
you never know when that opportunity is going to come. And I never say no to a conversation.
You didn't say no to me.
No, I didn't. But not even off podcast. Like, I just had somebody that I talked to this morning that reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, hey, it looks like we could have some similar interests. Can we chat? And I'm like, sure. She's like, that is so weird that you accepted my offer. I'm like, does that not usually work for you? Because it probably doesn't. But I was like, no, I mean, I saw we had some mutual friends, and, you know, just, I'm always open to a conversation. It turned out to be a really incredible conversation.
Right.
And sometimes you're going to waste your time, but you got to take that chance.
So what do you do outside of work, outside of the podcast? Like, what do you like to do for fun?
What is fun?
Well, hopefully it's your work.
I love work, and that's why I do it pretty much all the time.
Yeah.
No, outside of that, and I haven't been doing as much lately because it's so dang hot here in Texas, but I love to ride. I'm a long-distance cycler.
Okay.
So I love to tell people, even though it's been a few years now, I did the Hotter Than Hell 100. Are you familiar with that?
Out in Wichita Falls?
Yes.
Yeah.
Literally the hottest weekend of the year.
Yeah.
So it's brutal.
It just happened this past weekend.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So I love to cycle, but even more than that, a lot of times I just love to spend time being creative, doing things like to work on my brand or to, you know, just have, I read. I want it to be inspired. I love to read. So I'm kind of boring, aren't I, outside of work?
No, not at all. Not at all. Your proudest accomplishment outside of work?
My proudest accomplishment outside of work. Let me think, because it's been a while since I've done anything. Probably my son. He's, you know, he's an older gentleman now, and he just transitioned out of the Air Force where he was for 5 years. So, yeah, so I'm proud that I raised a son that went to serve our country.
Yeah, for sure. What does he plan on doing now? Does he's
going back to school. He loves music. He's very much a musician, so he's going back to school for business management and music.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I'm thankful for his service.
Me too.
For sure. Yeah,
Me too.
For sure. What is your greatest fear in life, Casey?
Not fulfilling my legacy.
And what does that mean, fulfilling your legacy? Because I hear a lot of times like leaving a legacy, living a legacy. You just said fulfilling a legacy. So
yeah.
What does that mean?
For me, that means, so you notice the name of the journal is Awaken Your Potential. And I feel like so many people go through life sleepwalking. And they don't really understand what their full potential is, and they don't understand how much bigger and better life could be if you would just awaken and not just drudge through life making the same decisions every single day just because that's what you've always done or what your parents did, right?
Yep.
You need to awaken. And so it's my goal in life to help people to awaken so that they can choose their own reality, because we do. You know, I can look over here and say that leaf behind you is green or blue, and it will be according to how I see it.
Right.
But you get to make that choice on how you're going to respond to what's going on around you, and that creates your own reality.
Because you can't respond. You can't control how somebody else responds.
No, but you can control how you respond.
That's right.
And for example, like if I showed up here today, I was ticked off at something and I was a victim and all I could see was the world was a dirty place, then I would probably notice all the trash on the floor. I'm just kidding. There's not trash on the floor. But do you see what I mean? Your mind works to confirm that bias.
Yeah.
And so I want to wake up as many people as possible to let them live the fullest lives by choosing their own reality as I can. That's what I mean by fulfilling my legacy.
Okay. That's great. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And is there anybody in your life that has been like a great example to you, a mentor, someone that you have learned a lot from, that you...
There's a lot of people in my life that I've learned a lot
from.
from.
So if you have one person, who would be that person that you would say...
And I'm just going to go with the here and now, because I've had so many mentors in the past, but the one person that I think has really stood up to mentor me and to help me, you know, not only in networking, but in serving people where they're at so that you can serve more people, has been Bill Wallace. He's the founder of Success North Dallas, which is a local networking organization that's been going on for 34 years.
Okay.
He's got some creds.
Yeah.
And he's kind of tapped me on the shoulder to come up, and he has been mentoring me on how to run such an organization and to keep it running for another 34 years. And being able to learn at the feet of a master, so to speak, is absolutely incredible. Although I will tell you, sometimes I want to cry afterwards.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because he can be intense when he's downloading information. He's like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Why would you not? You better explain. Defend yourself. I'm like, okay. I wasn't ready for that.
Right. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, so is there any question that I should have asked that I didn't? Like, what would you like to tell my audience about Casey that I didn't ask?
Oh, let me think, because we talked about so much. Oh, I wish you had asked me about our Young Executives Initiative.
Well, tell me about your Young Executives Initiative.
This is something that, and I don't know how it was for you when you were in your 20s, but for me, I was just like, somebody throw me something, you know, a life raft or something, because I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just stumbling through my career, trying to figure out what I'm doing. And I wish there'd been an organization, and there probably was, and I just didn't know it, but nobody reached out and said, hey, Casey, you might want to try this. So the Young Executives is part of Success North Dallas. It's actually an initiative that my company, VIP, is personally sponsoring. And this initiative is where we are helping young executives who come in that want to be, like, we have a mentorship program for them. We've got, so they get some one-on-one. We do happy education hours. That brings them. And they'll actually sit down and listen for 20 to 30 minutes. And what we do with that is, like, for example, one of the last ones we had was on reputation management. I mean, did anybody ever talk to you in your 20s about reputation management?
Nope.
It's so important. And it can be the smallest thing that you do that can ruin your reputation and take you forever to get it back.
Yeah.
And it could not even be your fault.
Yeah.
You know, I'm dealing with this with one of my young executives. You know, something he did that wasn't his fault is now impacting his reputation.
Yeah.
So we did reputation management where we have next month, we've got Randy Mayu from First Friday Book Synopsis. He's been doing that for 25 years, coming to talk about lifelong learning, which is so important. I read a lot of fiction in my 20s, not a lot of help books. So, you know, I wish that I'd read those, and I wish that I'd had somebody that had come in and poured into me like I'm pouring into these young executives to kind of collapse that timeline to success.
Right.
it's definitely a passion project of mine.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing
Yeah.
that. And I believe in lifelong learning. Like if you're not learning, you're dying.
Exactly.
Right? So I appreciate you saying that. And wow, I'm just so happy that you're here with me today. So as we wrap up, I do have 3 questions to ask you.
Okay.
But I'm going to preface it by saying I'm a chief happiness officer of a nonprofit.
Okay.
And it's called Who Do You Know? And our mission statement is to inspire imagination and dreaming with people from all walks of life by making connections.
Okay.
So we focus on 3 pillars: a person you want to meet, a place you want to go, or an experience you want to have.
Okay.
So, Casey, to my audience, and they may be able to make a connection to make this happen.
Okay.
So, who is a living person that you would like to meet?
Mel Robbins.
Mel Robbins. Well, she knew exactly who she wanted to meet.
I've been dying to meet. You remember I told you about throwing that out in the universe? This is what I'm throwing out in the
There you
universe.
go.
I want on
Throw it
my
out there.
podcast.
Yeah. Okay. Mel Robbins. Place you want to go?
Peru.
Peru.
Yeah.
Is there anything particular about Peru that
Yes.
attracts you there? What is
Yes. There is a meditation retreat there, close to Monte Picchu.
that? Okay.
And I just want to go immerse myself for a few days. And in fact, this is what I'm doing for my 50th birthday. Going to go to this meditation retreat and just do some more inner work.
Yeah. Fantastic. So that's already happening.
Well, in my mind it is.
Oh, okay.
It's not scheduled yet.
Got it.
I'm not 50 yet.
So what is an experience you want to have?
I think it kind of goes back to the whole Peru thing because I want to do like the whole Monte Picchu. I want to do the meditation, the Zen. I'm not going to tell you what else they do there, but
Right.
it's just a whole experience, and it's really more about focusing on yourself, finding your Zen, finding your clarity, and you can't do that with all the cars in the background. You know,
Right.
I want that solitude and that quietness.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, the name of your podcast again is?
We are VIP.
We Are VIP. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in today. And thank you, Casey, for being my guest today on the Matt Hilton Show. And I wish you all the best in all your endeavors and what you're looking to do in the future.
I appreciate you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. And tune in next week as we have another fascinating person with an inspiring story. Join us, and you don't want to miss that episode either. Take care. Bye.
The Matt Hilton Show would like to thank our sponsors, Hilton Realty Advisors and Maria Leach with the First United Mortgage Group. The Matt Hilton Show would also like to thank our partners, the Who Do You Know organization. You can find out more at wdyk.org. If you'd like to contact Matt or know a fascinating person with an inspiring story that would make a great guest, reach out to the show at themattHiltonshow@gmail.com.